Edge violated it in the worst possible way. So no, I've been walking around, and so many of our families have been walking around in a daze today.
And Leatherwood said that whether these images are directly from or just inspired by what the shooter wrote, he said, either way, this release is apprehensible and shows exactly why him and other Covenant school parents have taken legal action against these writings ever being released. He also said that Metro Police have assured him that whoever did leak these images will face a felony charge. He said, quote, our families and parents are still committed to doing everything we can to make sure that none of the rest of this sees the light of day, end quote. And in the Israel-Hamas war, President Biden spoke to the Israeli Prime Minister today. Karen Travers.
The White House says President Biden and Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu on Monday discussed the possibility of, quote, tactical pauses in strikes on Gaza to help civilians reach safer locations, allow for more humanitarian aid to get in, and allow the potential for hostages to be released. National Security spokesman John Kirby said the administration considers itself at the beginning of the conversation on temporary pauses in the fighting. Kirby said fewer than 30 trucks of humanitarian assistance arrived in Gaza Sunday into Monday, saying that is, quote, not enough and not to the degree the White House wants to see.
And that is the latest news, traffic and weather on the way. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
Good afternoon, everybody. 7 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock on Super Talk. I'm Brian Wilson, and you're listening to The Drive for this 6th day of November, 2023. Boy, I'll tell you, we got a lot going on here today, a lot to unravel. As we told you in the last hour, some amazing numbers that have come out that really show that this 2024 election is... Wow, the ding, ding, ding just continued, didn't it? The 2023 election is going to be really a barn burner, and in fact, very troubling numbers for the Biden administration. But here locally, of course, a lot of focus has been on these documents that have emerged from a radio host by the name of Steven Crowder, a conservative host, that purport to be 3 pages from the manifesto of the Covenant School shooter. Now, as you know, we've been locked in an intractable legal battle for the better part since last March, trying to keep these from coming out. But these 3 pages look like they come from the so-called manifesto, a spiral notebook that was found in the car of the Covenant shooter. Now, there are many writings. When we say manifesto, that has become sort of the go-to term. But there was something found in the car, and that appears to be what we're looking at today of these documents. There were a bunch of other documents that were found, in the same thing, spiral notebooks. The writings of the Covenant School shooter were found at the home, and there were many of those. And as I say, an intractable legal battle. There are so many lawyers involved in this thing now that you need a scorecard to keep up with all of them. We got lawyers for the city. We got lawyers for the parents. We got lawyers for the school. We got lawyers for the children. We have lawyers from news organization. Everybody fighting. And now, generally, I'm going to tell you, if this thing had been done in the way it is regularly done, these documents would have come out long ago, days after the shooting, perhaps, because there was never going to be a trial. There was never any way that law enforcement could claim that, you can't have them because it's part of our investigation. There's no way that would work because there's not going to be a trial. The shooter killed him or herself, however you want to call it. And so that is not something that would be a legitimate reason to stop it. Normally, parents do not enter the fray. Normally, the school and all these other legal entities that are now claiming that they don't want to see it released are not involved in what is normally a very easy decision by law enforcement. Follow the strictures of FOIA, the online, the request for information through the FOIA process, Freedom of Information Act. There is nothing in there that says that parents can be interveners in the case. But in this case, they are, and one judge said that they should be allowed to do so. That's been taken to a whole nother court, and that is all up for a question now. In that high court, if they follow the strictures of the Freedom of Information Act, then they will rule that the parents and the church and others cannot be interveners in the case. In other words, they have no standing. But that's a legal matter now. Now that it's out, what does it tell us? Well, it tells us that the shooter was a very angry, hateful individual, full of self-loathing, seemed to hate the children of the school because they were white, calling them crackers, seemed to hate that many of the students who go to the Covenant School come from families that are well-to-do. Had something to say about, the clothes that they wear and the cars that their daddies drive, and just a lot of hatred for the school in general, but also the people and the kids who went there. Remember, at one point, the shooter was a student at this school. Now, the shooting occurred, the shooter was 23 years old. But years before had been a student at this school. Was there something that happened in the shooter's past? Was there something that happened in the shooter's experience at that school that helped to be the seed of all this hatred that she had toward the school and the students that go there? Well, we don't have enough information to make that determination. But we know the individual was full of hate. And we know this individual was not pleased about the things that went on at that school. Although she was struggling with his or her gender, however she the reason I struggle with this is that sometimes she identified herself as Audrey, and sometimes she identified herself as Aiden, biologically born a female, and was going through some kind of a gender identity crisis in their life, and trying to figure out whether she was a boy or a girl. But one thing I can tell you, she was struggling with gender issues, and yet she tosses around very callously a terminology that is viewed by most as being a reprehensible term for gay people. She uses language like that. She drops the F-bomb. I mean, there's so much anger in these 3 pages. Now, you can make a decision if you want to look at these pages. At the top of yourfarb.com, I've put all the stories that I could find about this, which do include images of the 3 pages. That's urfarb.com. If you want to look, feel free to do so. But I think that, if you look at it, you will agree that this person had issues that should have been pretty obvious to anybody. Now, we know the individual was going through therapy. And we know in a situation like this that it could, was it therapy? Was it a medical therapy, a transitional therapy, a hormonal therapy? Maybe that was what they're talking about. Or was it, the psychologist? One way or the other, we know that there was therapy involved, and nobody seemed to pick up on this anger. Nobody seemed to pick up on this hatred that just seemed to permeate every fiber of this being. I have a hard time understanding how any responsible therapist could have missed that. It just seems like something that should never have been missed. Parents of the families who have tried to become interveners in this particular case held a press conference this afternoon. Here is Brent Leatherwood, who speaks on their behalf.
Parents and families came together to prevent this exact moment from happening, to prevent the re-victimizing of our children, and prevent further trauma to our families. With the release of images of these disgusting writings, what have we learned? Have we learned anything new? Have we learned anything we didn't already know? Did we not already know that this was a deeply disturbed individual who was detached from reality? One more evidence was needed. And so now, a community, a school, families who have already suffered so much were left yet again to deal with this terror. These writings do have the ability to inspire further attacks. And not just on us, on other communities. We saw this in Allen, Texas, where that shooter referenced the Covenant shooter. How many more people have to be killed in a senseless way so that you can get clicks? And lastly, I want to speak directly to the person who took these images and released them. You are a viper. You're a member of the law enforcement community. And you have released evidence that was gathered in our most vulnerable moment. You have now allowed this woman who terrorized our family with bullets to be able to now terrorize us with words from the grave. How could you? What kind of a person does this? I've had a number of conversations today with Metro Police, the TBI, others. Metro has assured me that this is a felony. That the person who did this will be brought to justice, they will be arrested, and that absolutely has to happen.
Well, look, your hearts go out to these families who have suffered. I mean, there's no doubt about it that they make an emotional case. But, this is about more than just their needs as well. It's the needs of the community have clarification about what was going on here. We have a state legislature that was asked to come into session and to pass laws to prevent something like this from happening. But how in the world could they do that without knowing what was in the writings, what motivated the individual, what was the history? We needed more information about what happened here that was not forthcoming from the police department. And they say, well, it's like it's 9 months later, and it's just been ripped open, ripped apart. I guess it's 8 months, but our hearts have been, and we have to go through this whole thing over again. I just want to say that if regular order had been followed, these documents would have been released long ago. And it would have been part of the original grieving process that you went through. And you would not have to go through it again today as you were starting to heal. I mean, wouldn't it be better? Wouldn't it have been better if these things are eventually going to come out? Wouldn't it be better to have them come out shortly after? So you have some understanding, and then you can begin the healing process, and you can start to grieve and move on with your lives. Yeah, I understand you don't like the fact that the documents have come out here lately, but why is it that the documents have not already come out? And if they had come out in the original time frame that these things normally come out, which can be actually in the same week of the shooting, you would have been moving on by now. You wouldn't have to revisit this thing just as you were starting to set your lives back in order. Look, my heart goes out. I can't even begin to understand the losses that you've experienced. But there is a need for the community to know more about this. A very understandable need. And I've always been one who believes in releasing these kinds of documents so that there is understanding. Again, if you're going to ask the state legislature to act, then, how in the world can you expect them to act without knowing what is in those documents? Our governor believes, although he understands the pain and the suffering, our governor believes that in the interest of transparency, these documents should be released. And news organizations traditionally have asked for it. Police officers themselves, police organizations have asked that these documents be released. So, look, I hate that you're going through this today. I truly hate it. I really, I can't even begin to understand the pain and the suffering that you must be going through and the wounds that have been ripped open today. But if this had all gone the way it was supposed to go, these documents would have long been out here, long talked about, when we would have moved on as a community. Who's keeping this thing alive right now? It seems to be the families and the church and the parents, with all due respect. And again, I don't find a great deal of criticism to what you've done, but I think you need to understand that we should have already been through all this a long, long time ago. It is 20 minutes now past the hour of 5 o'clock. Well, cooler weather. Well, you wouldn't know it by today, but cooler weather has actually arrived. It's been chilly a couple of nights here recently. And is your heater working okay? If your unit is on the blink, call the number I would call, 615-775-7833. That's the number to Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling. And they'll come over and work on your unit and get you up and running in very quick order. You may want to think about preventative maintenance. See, the preventative maintenance program is the way you keep the thing from going on the fritz in the first place. You're not going to wake up that morning and have cold floors and see your breath as you move around your house, because you've already would have caught the problem. You'll get 3 thorough maintenance services for becoming a member of the Beehive Club. Just starts $99. 3 thorough maintenance services on your systems. 1 aimed at heating, 1 aimed at cooling, 1 aimed at plumbing. No overtime charges, 24/7, and 10% off all repairs. Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling is your official Rude Pro partner. For satisfaction guaranteed, call Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling, 615-775-7833, online at busybhvac.com.
My name is Shannon Jefferson. I was cross-addicted, crack cocaine, and heroin. I OD'd 4 times. Well, 9 times in all, but in this instance, 4 times in a 2-month period. It's not a second that goes by. It's not somebody that you call or talk to. This program really helped me to get my spiritual man back. It's like I'm a man again. They taught me how to really be a man. You can help. If anybody can help the mission out and save one, that means a big deal. Because for me, it wasn't just helping my life, it affects my whole family. They feed the homeless, they do clothing, nothing goes to waste. Everything helps when it comes to mission. I mean, words can't describe how much I feel deeply about this mission.
Coming up, the latest on images that were released today that are allegedly photos of the Covenant Shooters Manifesto, plus donations on their way to Israel from Tennessee. Those stories coming up 30 minutes after the hour of 5 o'clock right here on Super Talk, 99.7 WTN.
Spanning the globe to bring you the constant variety of sport, the thrill of victory, and the agony of defeat.
Well, it's time for our fan favorite, Mac Maury's Wide World of Sports. Now, here is the host of your program. You know him, you love him. You cannot live without him. The one, the only, Mac Maury, ladies and gentlemen. Woo! And the crowd goes wild.
Hello, hello.
Hello.
Good evening.
I don't know what you've got.
Good evening. Yeah, it's dark out. I just want to point that out.
Dark.
That's right, it is.
It's crazy.
Ridiculous.
Yeah. I don't know what story you want to talk about, but I want to tell you that I have one we've got to spend a little time for.
No, let's start with it. I'm curious.
All right. This comes from the Daily Caller, but it really is a reporting out of New England.
Yeah, we're on the same page here, Brian.
We're on the same page.
Yeah, we're
here?
on the same
Well, then
page.
you go ahead and tell the story.
Yeah, so Daily Wire, Boston Globe, I mean, radio hosts up in Boston were talking about it today about how basically there's been rumblings up in New England that this could be Bill Belichick's last year as head coach for the New England Patriots. And
and in fact, we actually had a story not too long ago where there was talk about how the Tennessee Titans might want to bring in Belichick.
Exactly. And it could be a swap of some sorts, I guess, because then there were reports that tried to debunk that, say, no, he just signed an extension. Well, the reports today say that extension only goes through 2024, and that the next pick for Patriots head coach from owner Robert Kraft could be a home run choice is Mike Vrabel going over to New England to be the head coach, which would be quite something. Obviously, he was a player there for the Patriots for some time, won multiple Super Bowls there. A Hall of Famer on the defensive end, and by all accounts,
just inducted into the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, just inducted into the Hall of Fame. Multiple touchdowns actually from a defensive player, both in the regular season and playoffs. Just historic player for just the sport of football in general. So there is a chance, I guess, from these reports, as you were saying, Brian, that Robert Kraft could try and poach Mike Vrabel over to New England and go back to his roots.
Wouldn't it be something if Vrabel goes to the Patriots and Belichick comes to the Titans? I mean, it's like it's Freaky Friday or something. I don't know.
Exactly.
Musical chairs.
Yeah.
It would have to be extremely enticing, I would think, for Coach Vrabel. I mean, to kind of go back home, as you would say. I'm sure he would like to kind of finish what he started here in Nashville with the Titans, but as far as bringing a championship to the city. But I would think that would be very enticing for him.
I think, if you're Tennessee, you'd at least listen on the phone, because you do have Mike Vrabel signed. It would require a trade from the Patriots. They'd actually have to give up something to go acquire. Yeah, compensation, maybe a first-round pick, maybe 2 first-round picks. You're talking about a younger head coach in the National Football League, and Mike Vrabel, who's had early success. And that's someone who, if you're Robert Kraft and the Patriots, you're thinking, okay, we could, give up 1 first-round pick and maybe get our coach for the next 2-3 decades. So who knows the legitimacy of that? But that would be something. That'd be crazy.
It had to have been talked about when he was up there just a couple weeks ago at the induction ceremony, right? He had to have pulled him aside. Kraft had to say, "Hey, Coach, can we talk for a minute?"
Yeah, how are things down there in Music City? What do you think about coming back up here? What do you say? Because I'm getting tired of Bill. So who knows what would happen there? But obviously, right now we know Mike Vrabel is the Tennessee Titans head coach, and we've got half a season at least left with him. And the Titans have some work to do, obviously, if they want to get back into the division race or playoff contention or anything like that. I think they go to just to make sure here. I'm pretty sure it's. But yes, exactly. They go to Tampa Bay next weekend. This is the second of their 3 road game stint in a row, consecutive road game stint. And this is kind of a loser leaves town match, is what I like to call it. I mean, whoever loses that game, it's done. Playoffs, anything past the regular season, that's it. So that's a loser leaves town match. So we'll definitely be looking out for that. And Vrabel will be on the sidelines with his headset, coaching for the Titans, so don't worry about that.
Belichick has not had a great year. Let's see. It says here in this story that I'm reading that his first season as the head coach was 2000. It also happens to be the last campaign that the Patriots have performed as badly as they have this year. In that 2000 season, the Pats began things at 2-7, finishing with 5-11 losing tally. It also happens to be the last losing campaign that New England had all the way up to 2020. So,
and you got to think he was the culprit in trying to get Tom Brady out of town. That was not owner Robert Kraft. That was purely Bill Belichick saying, "Hey, no, we're done. He's done. He can't do it anymore. I need a new quarterback." And what did Tom Brady go and do? He went and won a Super Bowl.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, well, very interesting and something worth watching. Well, it's time now for Mac to take off his sports hat, put back on his news hat, because news is happening now on Super Talk 99.7.
5:31, I'm Mac Maury with your top story. 71 degrees, and you heard it from Weber. It's dark outside in Nashville. Full weather forecast, the latest traffic report on the way in 5 minutes. Right now in Tennessee, Steven Crowder, conservative radio host, released 3 images of what he claimed was the Covenant School shooter's writings. Fox 17 and Channel 4 have come out and said that these photos are legitimate. So far, Metro, the mayor's office, nor Metro Police have disputed the claim that these writings are from the Covenant School shooter. Brent Leatherwood, a parent of 3 Covenant School students, spoke to media today and expressed his thoughts on the leaks of these images.
I believe that this is just the tip of the iceberg. And our parents are still committed, our families are still committed to doing everything we can to make sure that none of the rest of this sees the light of day, because We don't want our children to someday read this stuff and whatever else may be there, because they're disconnected ramblings, but they are connected by one thing: they're evil.
Leatherwood went on to say that he was assured by Metro Police that whoever leaked this will have a felony charge headed their way. Leatherwood also said that whether these images are directly from or just inspired by what the shooter did, he said that this release is apprehensible and shows exactly why him and other Covenant parents have taken legal action against the writings ever being released. And donations to Israel coming from the volunteer state. News 2 says that a cargo plane full of everyday essentials is on its way to Tel Aviv from Nashville this week. Multiple organizations came together to gather these items. In addition to clothing, undergarments, hygiene products, and handwritten notes, Project Cure is shipping 3,000 mattresses plus pallets of diapers and wipes. That is the latest news. Traffic and weather on the way. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
It's 38 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock, and it's dark outside, and it's just not right. Golly. You know, I have, because at some points during the season, during the year, the sun just comes right into my eyes through the window here in my studio in Bucolic, Watertown. And so I have these blackout curtains, and so, you know, when you said it was dark, I thought, wow. I didn't even know it was dark outside until I opened my windows. I was sitting around with Cabana Wife this weekend. You know, we were watching TV on Sunday, watching, you know, a couple of different shows. We were looking for something to find, something to stream. And, you know, we found something we watched. I watched an episode, watched the second episode. I said, I think I'm ready for bed. She said, Brian, it's 7:30.
Yeah, exactly.
I know.
Yeah, I can relate to that.
What
time is it?
Yeah, I know. I have to stay up another hour at least, you know? So anyway, yeah, it is that time of year that, you know, everybody hates. But you know what? If we can just get through to December, if we make it to December, as Merle Haggard wrote, everything's going to turn out right, because in December, we go through the winter solstice, and then every day after that, the days get longer.
But boy, it seems to get darker a whole lot earlier, faster than it gets darker later. Does that make sense?
No,
it seems like
I'm not sure I'm following you.
It seems like we get to the shortest day a lot faster than we get away from the shortest day.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, yes.
Because that
I get
winter,
that.
I mean, really, it seems like it's March before it's light out for any time of, beyond 4:30, 5 o'clock.
Yeah. But the other side of it is I woke up early this morning and got up really early and because I'm still on there. Basically, my biological clock hasn't changed. Only the clocks have changed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
who has it really tough though this time of year? Well, I guess not so much this time of year. Maybe it's during the other time change. The animals. See, they don't know how to tell time. Their stomach tells them it's time to eat.
Yeah, they don't care.
And then they got to wait. You
Yeah.
know, so I guess it's really the spring.
Yep,
They struggle, but anyway.
I'll tell you. Well, I wish we would just pick a time. I like daylight saving time. I like it. By the way, it's daylight saving time.
Yes.
Everybody calls it savings time. It's not. It's saving.
Mm-hmm.
And I like that better because I like to have the time during the summer for the evenings. When it's nice outside, get things done.
Yep.
Nice to sit out on the porch or the patio, or if you have one. A cabana, and I love that, but I really hate it when we switch back. I really do, and I know everybody else does too. I mean, you get that extra hour of sleep. Didn't even notice I got an extra hour of sleep.
Me either.
Yeah.
No.
All right. Well, we're not. By the way, they have a law, and they keep trying to get it passed that would do just that, and it just never seems to go anywhere. Everybody gripes about it this time of year, but nobody ever goes back and says, well, let's pass that law.
Just do it. Come on. Just do it.
Yeah. Pick it and then leave it there. A lot of things I want to talk to you about. Now, there are two big stories I think that are driving the day. One is, of course, the release of this manifesto, or at least 3 pages of the apparent manifesto. Look, I mean, Fox 17 has confirmed that it's authentic. WSMV Channel 4 has confirmed that it's authentic. Our Matt Murphy has a source who says it's authentic. Patrick Leahy over at the Tennessee Star says it's authentic. I think we can just assume that the pages came from the writings of the Covenant School shooter. And again, that is quite a surprise, and it gives you a glimpse into that person. We're pretty much done talking about that today, but that's the number one story of the day, I think, from a local standpoint. Then the other thing is a political story, which I think is huge, which has to do with the situations involving the numbers that came out this weekend that show that Joe Biden is in a death spiral. I mean, his numbers are just going right down the toilet. And now, if there's ever going to be a change, the Democrats are going to make, it's going to have to happen now. We'll get into that, I promise you, in the next hour. But those are our 2 big driving stories. But there's a lot of other news out there. Number one, what about this big fight that's happening in Washington over Israeli aid? You remember when we last left this story, the new Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, Republican of Louisiana, boy, I'm liking him a lot. The more I hear him, the more I like him. was out there saying that we're going to provide $14.3 billion in aid, but we're going to take it out of the IRS budget because we're not just going to keep printing money. He seems to be a real deficit hawk, and boy, I'm glad. I want to see that. But the president said, well, if that lands on my desk without being connected to Ukrainian aid, and if it has that language in there about taking money from the IRS, I'm going to veto it. The Senate says that, they don't like it either. That's the Democrats are in charge of the Senate. But I hope that Johnson holds his ground as long as he possibly can. Here's what he had to say about it recently, talking about how he's going to stand by his package for Israeli aid.
Phase of its war. It's been kind of disturbing to us. I've heard Democrats suggest that there needs to be a ceasefire. Let us be clear. We've been very clear about this. There was a ceasefire. It was before October 7th, and Hamas broke it. And Israelis suffered unspeakable acts of evil, as you've heard even recounted here this morning. Israel doesn't need a ceasefire. It needs its allies to cease with the politics and deliver support now. And that's what we're doing. House Republicans plan to do that. We're going to do it in short order, and it provides Israel the aid it needs to defend itself, free its hostages, and eradicate Hamas, which is a mission that must be accomplished. All of this, while we also work to ensure responsible spending and reduce the size of the federal government to pay for that commitment to our friend and ally. We cannot waste any time getting Israel the aid it needs. We're going to work on that. We'll take a few questions.
Well, anyway, he also said that that they're basically going to pay for this, and he believes we've got to address. He's really big on this, and I like it. He says we've got to address the runaway deficit, $33 trillion deficit that we have.
You all know that we've crossed the terrible landmark of $33.6 trillion in federal debt, and that threatens our security, our freedom, our way of life. Treasury Department announced earlier this week that we have to borrow, and the American people need to understand the scope of this. We are going to borrow an additional $1.5 trillion just to fund the government over the next 2 quarters, 6 months. We're going to have to borrow the money. This is not a sustainable trajectory. And so what's happening is the effect on the American people has been really devastating. You have record high inflation is causing real pain for hardworking American families. It's leaving their futures uncertain. Families are having to make very tough, life-altering decisions because the cost of living is too high. Meanwhile, the skyrocketing interest rates are quickly turning the American dream into a mirage for millions of Americans. We feel that acutely here, and that's why House Republicans will not stop until we get this job done. We're on pace now to have 8 of our 12 appropriations bills passed. If you need a reminder, that's 8 more appropriations bills passed than the Democrat-led Senate, which has passed, as of today, 0 appropriations bills. We're doing our job, and we hope and expect that they'll do the same.
So how does this all play out? Well, the Republicans will put down their marker and what they would like to see, and then the Democrats over in the Senate, who control that body, will come up with a bill that or a measure that lays down what their beliefs are, although they haven't done that yet. So I do think that the House has sort of the upper hand advantage, but there will have to be some kind of negotiations that go on with whatever the Democrats do in the Senate. That's called a conference. So are Republicans going to be able to get everything that they want? No. But will they get some of what they want? Yes. And that's great. That's the way it's supposed to work. And then it goes to the president's desk. I mean, the president is issuing all kinds of veto threats about this, that, or the other. If this gets there, I'm going to veto it. If this gets there, I'm going to veto it. Well, you know what? There's a process that takes place. And the House of Representatives is doing its job the way it should be done. The Senate, not so much. And they're trying to jam up the House, just like they always do, and try to, wait till the end of the year. And, oh, my goodness, we've got to do something, so we'll pass this CR/omnibus bill. We'll jam it all together. Nobody knows what's in it, and it's just a disaster. That is not going to fly in the House. Republicans will not allow that to happen. I can promise you. So it's going to be a little bit different process, and we'll see how it all plays out. But, when you hear veto threats, well, they don't even know what they're going to have land on their desk yet because the process has not played itself out. By the way, we are getting closer and closer, it feels like to me, to move from impeachment inquiry into actual impeachment in the House of Representatives. We've been following that story, every day. The drip, drip, drip of that story it continues. But I mean, these documents that have come up lately from bank accounts belonging to Hunter Biden and to James Biden, the president's brother, seem to suggest that money was going from nefarious sources through a bunch of shell corporations into the personal bank accounts of James and Hunter Biden, and then checks were written to the big guy. In fact, one of them, remember the document that where Hunter Biden was complaining about, at least you don't have to give 10% of everything you earn to the big guy. Yeah, well, guess what? As it turns out, one of those payments was exactly 10%. And it landed in his account, and they said, well, we're just repaying a loan. Where was the loan? Where's the evidence of the loan? Repayment of a loan. There is no loan, as far as we know. And it seems like if you had the bank records of James and Hunter Biden and they got a loan from Pops, that it would show up in their account somewhere, right? They are in real trouble over there. And this story is getting really, really good, and it's beginning to look a lot like bribery, and that there was a pay for play, that the Biden, as vice president, would do things in return for payments to his son's businesses. So I think that's going to move along pretty quickly. And I think that maybe before the end of the year, we'll be talking about the impeachment process of Joe Biden. 5:50 now on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Hey, listen, Dr. Mitchell and the Wellness Institute of Nashville is thankful during this time of Thanksgiving, this month of November, and they want to celebrate the month of Thanksgiving by giving a special offer to all of the clients out there who've been thinking about going to see Dr. Kevin Mitchell at the Wellness Institute of Nashville, but have been putting it off and putting it off. Now, this is great. 2 patient appointments for $23. That's right. You and your friend, spouse, family member, it doesn't matter who, but as long as you both show up for the appointment together, you'll get 2 exams, 2 x-rays, and your first treatments, the first 2 treatments, for $23. I mean, your half of that is walking around money. You got that in your pocket, right? What have you got to lose to find out exactly what might be able to be done? I mean, if you got pain in your back, leg, neck, arms, if you have a tingling, a weakness, a numbness, if you've heard the terms of disc bulging or disc herniation or spinal stenosis to describe what you're going through, why not make a call to the Wellness Institute of Nashville, 615-246-5009. He'll come up with a plan for you. You go in, you do the work. And I can tell you, I can speak from personal experience. The non-surgical spinal decompression worked for me. It worked big time. Worked on my neck, worked on my lower back. What have you got to lose? Pick up the phone and call and set that first appointment for you and your best bud. 615-246-5009. Learn more at painisbad.com.
Hi, I'm Paul Winkler. One of the things you hear me talk about frequently on my radio show that has been going for over 20 years in the Nashville market is that annuity sales are not necessarily a great thing for the end investor. Now, if you go to an investment firm, a lot of times you'll get that. The first thing that they recommend, an annuity, banks and investment firms recommend these for one really good reason. And many times that reason isn't the best thing for you. It's commissions. It's a huge moneymaker for the investing industry. This is why I think it's so important that when you work with an investment advisor, that they not be paid on commission. It creates a huge conflict because it creates an incentive to sell you things that may not be in your best interest. If you want to learn more about our approach to investing and financial planning, go to paulwinkler.com and set up a free 15-minute phone call. We don't do anything on commissions. Or you can call 615-851-1950.
I want to talk to you about Genesis Diamonds having the biggest and last store-wide sale of the year. It's coming this November 18th, 17th, 18th, and 19th. That's next Friday through Sunday. Now listen, it's not too soon to be talking about Christmas, so you might want to take advantage of this extraordinary event with savings up to 20, 25, maybe even 35% on some items. This is the event people wait for all year long. Rings, earrings, pendants, bands, bracelets. Nothing will be held back for this once-a-year, 3-day sale. Acclaimed designers from New York and California will be flying in with expanded collections and special pricing. It's like the biggest jewelry trunk show you've ever seen, times 10. So check out all the new collections, the latest styles in both fashion and bridal jewelry, plus get 0% interest financing so you can spread your payments out. And don't miss the year's best jewelry event, the one where they break all the rules. And yes, Genesis luxury pre-owned Rolexes are also included. Check out their hard-to-find Rolex models and get special pricing for the event. And lab-grown diamonds also included. It's the final store-wide sale of the year with discounts up to 35%. Genesis Diamonds, 3 days only, September 17th, 18th, and 19th, only at Genesis Diamonds, my jewelry store in Green Hills and Cool Springs.
Six o'clock, I'm Mac Maury with your top story. 68 degrees, a clear night in Music City. Latest forecast and a traffic report on the way in 5 minutes. Right now in Middle Tennessee, conservative media host Steven Crowder released 3 images of what he claimed were photos of the Covenant shooter's writings. Fox 17 and now Channel 4 have come out saying that their sources have verified that claim. Our own WTN's Matt Murphy's source has done the same. So far, Metro, the mayor's office, nor Metro Police have disputed the claim that these writings are from the Covenant School. Metro Police did confirm that the photos were not from the crime scene itself, like some had thought. And Brent Leatherwood, a Covenant School parent of 3, spoke to media today and discussed how this news blindsided so many close to the tragedy.
I immediately went to Metro, and then I went up to TBI, because I think when you pass a squad car from Metro, it says that they are Nashville's guardians. And I firmly believe that. And I know so many police officers, particularly after March 27th, they believe that. And if this individual was a member of Metro, he has violated that pledge, violated it in the worst possible way. So no, I've been walking around, and so many of our families have been walking around in a daze today.
Leatherwood went on and said that whether these images are directly from or just inspired by what the shooter did, he said, either way, this release is apprehensible and shows exactly why him and other Covenant parents have taken legal action against the writings ever being released. He also said that Metro Police have assured him that whoever did leak these images will face felony charges. Tension in the New York City courtroom today, where former President Donald Trump was testifying in a civil fraud trial involving the Trump Organization, in which he's charged with fraudulently representing the value of his real estate portfolio. Trump was verbally attacking the judge and speaking out of turn, leading to the judge to raise his voice and ask Trump's lawyers to, quote, control their client. Later in the afternoon, things inside the courtroom were said to have quieted down. Here's Aaron Katersky on the earlier part of the day.
He was being asked about his properties and his real estate empire and how his properties were valued. The judge admonished him to be more concise. And at that point, his attorney, Chris Kise, stood up and said, well, maybe the state should be asking more direct questions. And they went back and forth. And once the judge started, yelling, sit down. He didn't want to hear political speeches. He said, this is a courtroom. It's not a political rally. But the former president is clearly using this opportunity, this legal opportunity, to press a political argument.
And Trump's lawyer, Alina Habba, says that the judge predetermined that her client, Donald Trump, committed fraud before entering the courtroom. And that is the latest news. Traffic and weather on the way. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
Hey, it's 7 o'clock. Well, not 7 o'clock. It's 7 minutes past the hour of 6 o'clock. It feels like it's 7 o'clock because it's really dark outside. That's what's the problem. I'll tell you that for sure. Oh, man. Where did our nice little evenings go? Just dark. Just gets dark way, way, way too early. I forgot that about the time change, I hadn't thought about it. I have my windows closed. I have drapes blackout curtains, because normally there's times during the year, it's not this time of year, but other times of the year, sun comes right through that window and into my eyes, and I can't see the computers or anything. So I have these blackout curtains, and they're normally closed. But I opened up, it's just dark. I'll tell you how dark it is. The Christmas lights just came on.
Yeah. That's true.
Yeah, that's right. Against all of my better judgment, we have already started moving into Christmas decorating.
Yeah.
Yep. I mean, I'm telling you, they went up this weekend, and thankfully, I didn't have to climb the ladder to do it. When you get to be a certain age, you should never get on a ladder. And so it's a nice man named Rob. Rob came out and put my my Christmas decorations up, and I don't have to worry about it at all. So glad to have that done. That's one thing off the list. We still have to wrestle that 27-foot inflatable Christmas tree into its proper position at some point, but we'll get to that a little bit later. We've talked a lot today about politics, but I'm telling you, I don't know how I can overstate sort of the key moment that arrived this weekend. I've been saying for some time now that I don't think that Joe Biden is going to be the Democrat nominee for president. And I've told you, I don't know how it's going to happen. I don't know when it's going to happen. I can tell you that it will happen. I think they will shove him aside because he's just not up to the task. Number one, we all know that. Anybody who looks at him knows it. And while if he for somehow holds on and continues to be the nominee of the party, it seems pretty clear that he'll get the nomination, and he will run. But it's beginning to look like if he does, it is certain that he will lose, and Democrats are not going to stand by and let an old feeble man, lose the presidency to Donald Trump. They're just not going to do it. I mean, they hate Donald Trump so much. And although they have, a certain kind of, old old grandpa affection for Joe Biden, the affection is not really what it's all about. It's all about, can you win and can you prevent Orange Man from being president again? Because that's all they care about. That's all they care about. It can't be Trump again. But it's looking like it. If everything stays the way it is, it will be. And that's why the numbers that came out from the New York Times Siena poll are so devastating to Joe Biden and his desire to run for a second term. If you haven't heard about it, let me just say, number one, you say, well, New York Times. Well, listen, I'll tell you why that's important. It's the New York Times. It is an organ of the left. It is a newspaper that is widely read in Washington and New York, and so it gets paid attention to by the real people in the Democrat Party who matter, the power brokers who pull the levers from behind the scenes, and they exist. Believe me, they exist. And this story is devastating to Joe Biden. If he woke up and read this, I doubt he even read it. I think they keep things like this from him. I really do, because he seems to be clueless as to how bad a trouble he's in right now. And I don't normally read from the New York Times because it's the New York Times. But this story I read with great interest, and I'll share it with you. I'll read all of the key points here, and there's a lot of stuff to absorb. So pay rapt attention. This is going to be game changer. President Biden is trailing Donald J. Trump in 5 of the 6 most important battleground states 1 year before the 2024 election, suffering from enormous doubts about his age and deep dissatisfaction over his handling of the economy and a host of other issues, this new poll by the New York Times and Siena College has found. The results show Mr. Biden losing to Mr. Trump, his likeliest Republican rival, by margins of 3 to 10 percentage points among registered voters in Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, and Pennsylvania. Mr. Biden leads only in Wisconsin, but then only by 2 percentage points. Across the 6 battlegrounds, all of which Mr. Biden carried in 2020, the president trails by an average of 48 to 44. Discontent pulsates through the Times Siena poll, with a majority of voters saying Mr. Biden's policies have personally hurt them. The survey also reveals the extent to which the multiracial and multi-generational coalition that elected Mr. Biden is starting to fray. Demographic backgroups that backed Mr. Biden by landslide margins in 2020 are now far more closely contested, as two-thirds of the electorate sees the company moving in the wrong direction. Voters under 30, this is amazing, favor Mr. Biden by only 1 point. His lead among Hispanic voters is down to single digits. His advantage in urban areas is half of Mr. Trump's edge in rural regions. And while women still favor Mr. Biden, men preferred Mr. Trump by twice as large a margin, reversing the gender advantage that had fueled so many Democrat gains in recent years. Black voters, long a bulwark for Democrats and Mr. Biden, are now registering 22% support in these states for Mr. Trump, a level unseen in presidential politics for a Republican in modern times. Add it all together, and Mr. Trump leads by 10 points in Nevada, 6 in Georgia, 5 in Arizona, 5 in Michigan, 4 in the swingiest of all swing states, Pennsylvania, and Mr. Biden has a 2-point edge in Wisconsin. Listen to this, though. This is an interesting observation and a remarkable sign of a gradual racial realignment between the two parties. The more diverse the swing state, the farther Mr. Biden was behind, and he led in only the widest of the 6. That's very interesting. So I'm going to skip ahead through a bunch of the stuff. They talk to people about why do you feel this way or that way. If the results of the poll were the same next November, Mr. Trump would be poised to win with more than 300 electoral votes, far above the 270 required to take the White House. More than 300 electoral college votes. Wow. Another ominous sign for Democrats is that voters across all income levels felt that Mr. Biden's policies had hurt them personally, while they credited Mr. Trump's policies for having helped them. The results were mirror opposites. Voters gave Mr. Trump a 17-point advantage for having helped them, and Mr. Biden an 18-point disadvantage for having hurt them. I mean, that's right. I mean, the president, he's out there every day. He's saying, I've got this Bidenomics and it's working.
It's working.
Yeah, he says it's working.
It's working.
It's not working for a lot of people, according to these polls. Not working at all. An overwhelming 71% said he was too old to be an effective president, an opinion shared across every demographic and geographic group in the poll, including a remarkable 54% of Mr. Biden's own supporters in the Democrat Party. Wow. In contrast, only 19% of supporters of Mr. Trump, who is 77, viewed him as too old. That's pretty good. 62% said Mr. Biden does not have the mental sharpness to be effective. And let's see, by a margin of 59 to 37%, voters said they better trusted Mr. Trump over Mr. Biden on the economy, the largest gap of any issue. It is the economy. But remember, they've got this Bidenomics and it's working.
It's working.
No, it's not working. And people know that. You can sit out there every day and say
it's working.
But if it's not where it resonates in people's lives, when they go to put groceries on the table or gas in the tank or try to buy, things for their home or clothing or pay for rent, they know it's not working. You can say
it's working,
but it's not working. Let's see. This is another thing real quick. I'll end it here probably. Voters under 30, a group that strongly voted for Mr. Biden in 2020, said they trusted Mr. Trump more on the economy by an extraordinary 28 percentage point margins after years of inflation and now high interest rates have made mortgages far less affordable. Less than 1% of poll respondents under 30 rated the current economy as excellent. Less than 1% said it's not excellent. This is for young people, right? Under 30. In the states of Arizona, Nevada, and Wisconsin, they couldn't find anybody under 30 who rated the economy as being excellent. Voters preferred Mr. Trump over Mr. Biden on immigration by 12 points, on national security by 12 points, on the Iranian-Palestinian conflict by 11 points. And although a 58% majority of those polled supported more economic and military aid to Ukraine, which aligns with Mr. Biden's policy, it didn't seem to benefit the president on broader questions of fitness to handle foreign affairs. Apparently the one thing that I'll read you this last thing. I understand it's written by the New York Times, so they're going to have to take a shot on the way out the door. That's just, they can't help themselves. Today, the degree to which voters are turned off by Mr. Trump's personality and bombast, which has been the glue helping keep together a fractious Democrat coalition for years, appears to have waned. Only 46% of voters said Mr. Biden had the proper temperament to be president. 43% said the same of Trump. I mean, I'm telling you, across the board, this poll shows that that Democrats are in deep doo-doo, quite frankly, if they stick with Joe Biden, which is why this other story is very interesting. You ready? Top Democrat strategist David Axelrod suggests Biden drop out of the 2024 race. This is a man who's glued at the hip with Barack Obama. If you hear David Axelrod saying something, you can be pretty sure that this is the view held by former President Barack Obama. The only man who has not yet weighed in and said it's time for Joe Biden to step aside. But he's sending out his surrogate, David Axelrod. Only Joe Biden can make this decision. If he continues to run, he will be the nominee of the Democrat Party. What he needs to decide is whether that is wise, and whether this is in his best interest or the country's. Axelrod said there's a risk associated with changing course now, and there is little time left for a primary campaign. It's now or never. I can hear Elvis singing. I'm telling you, Democrats are freaking out. And again, because this is an organ of the left, they're reading this and it's going around in circles. It's got the topic at dinner tables. It's the topic in hallways at the water cooler. It is. If you're a Democrat, you're talking about this poll and how bad it is. Everybody's done a take on it, but this is not, by the way, the only voices that you hear saying that things are going badly. Here is CBS this weekend.
Now, part of the challenge for Mr. Biden here is that people are simply pretty pessimistic at the moment. 73% said that things are just going badly in America right now, and that's up from 65% at the start of the year. So voters just don't feel great about where things stand right now.
ABC?
George, voters are just plain frustrated across the board. 76% of adults in this poll say the country is headed in the wrong direction. Only 23%, less than a quarter of the country, say that we're headed on the right track. And the issues that are animating voters' frustration, it's almost unspeakably vast and broad. Economy, 74% of Americans say it's very important to them personally. 69% say the same about inflation. Those are issues in our poll that tend to favor Republicans. Voters say they trust Republicans more than Democrats on those issues.
Well, it doesn't look good, but we have an election that's scheduled for tomorrow. In some parts of the country, there are some really interesting races that may give us a sense just how big the red wave might be. And I'll get into that after we take a break. 21 past the hour. If you're in the market for a pole barn, the two brothers that run Stoltz Co. are guys you need to talk to. I mean, you've got to look at their website. Just go to stoltzco.com and take a look. But exceptional quality, craftsmanship, and fair prices. They can help you build your new pole barn to your specifications with your needs in mind. That is the Stoltz Co. difference. If you can use a pole barn for all kinds of things, you can use it as a tool or a work barn. You can use it as a garage, even a place to live. Flexibility is key. They combine the classic post-frame barn look with the reliability of modern materials and techniques to give you a finished barn that will stand the test of time. They don't scrimp on quality. They don't cut corners. They believe their customers deserve only the best. It's stoltzco.com. Again, that website. Go over there, take a look at it, and I'll tell you what, it's STOLTZCO, Stoltzco. And when you see these pole barns that they have on display there, you're going to walk away saying, man, that ain't my grandpappy's pole barn. Listen, top quality, top workmanship, great customer service. And it's when you get through looking at them, you need to call them and start getting some real information. They'll give you a quote right on the phone, 615-622-5992. Learn more again at stoltzco.com. That's stoltzco.com.
My name is Shannon Jefferson. I was cross-addicted, crack cocaine and heroin. I OD'd 4 times. Well, 9 times in all, but in this instance, 4 times in a 2-month period. It's not a second that goes by. It's not somebody that you call or talk to. This program really helped me to get my spiritual man back. It's like I'm a man again. They taught me how to really be a man. You can help. If anybody can help the mission out and save one, that means a big deal. Because for me, it wasn't just helping my life. It affects my whole family. They feed the homeless. They give clothing. Nothing goes to waste. Everything helps when it comes to mission. I mean, words can't describe how much I feel deeply about this mission.
It is 27 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock. I want to make you aware that there is an election tomorrow in some parts of the country, and there's a lot of bellwether races to watch that may give us an indication of how the 2024 election is going to play out. In Kentucky and Mississippi, voters will weigh as to whether to give Governors Andy Beshear of Kentucky and Tate Reeves of Mississippi a second term. Tate Reeves, a Republican, Beshear, a Democrat. The Virginia State Legislature, this is going to be one to watch because all 140 seats in the Virginia State Legislature are up for re-election, 100 seats in the House, 40 in the Senate. The Democrats hold a 22-18 edge in the Senate, Republicans have a very, very small edge in the House of Delegates, and analysts see control of both chambers boiling down to a handful of seats, and Democrats are going on offense on the issue of abortion while Republicans are targeting their opponents over crime. It's going to be interesting because many of the closely watched swing seats in the state of Virginia voted for President Biden in 2020, but then also voted for Governor Glenn Youngkin, a Republican. They split the ticket. The governor's been heavily involved in state legislature races this year, and so it's going to be interesting to watch. If Virginia goes boldly in the direction of the red and away from the blue, it's a very sort of, it's sort of a purplish state anyway. Can go either way. That'll be interesting. The Kentucky governor's race, just north of us here, we have listeners up in Kentucky. Boy, we're watching that one closely. We got Beshear, who is running for re-election, up against Cameron, who is a really attractive candidate in many ways for the Republicans. And he was way behind until he started aligning himself with Trump, and he got the Trump endorsement. And it's now dead even. 47 each with a 4% undecided, 2% saying someone else. That's pretty close. It doesn't get any, it's tight as a tick there in Kentucky. But if the voters go in a big way for Cameron and away from Beshear, the incumbent, another sign that things are going well. And in Ohio, pretty interesting. They got a ballot measure on abortion and marijuana. And it's the Buckeye State became a flashpoint after the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade. A 10-year-old rape victim traveled to Indiana and received an abortion because she was unable to obtain one in Ohio. Became a big deal up there. Abortion is currently legal until 22 weeks in the state. So that they have made the campaign up there largely about that. There is an open seat on the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, which should be interesting to watch as well. All things considered, I think I would watch Virginia and Kentucky. Two very interesting situations. In Virginia, if it goes red, it really speaks a lot to the fact that people are dissatisfied with Democrat policies. It could really, that's probably the best bellwether. In Kentucky, you've got two really, duking it out opponents. And each of them have been wedded to the people who are up ticket on the Republican side, Donald Trump, of course, and on the Democrat side, it'd be Joe Biden. And it really is sort of a referendum on the Biden administration. And if Beshear, the incumbent, goes down, it's going to be a sign that perhaps it's going to be a good 2024 for Republicans. It is now 30 minutes past the hour of 6 o'clock. You know, really, a lot of people are having to make very big decisions about the kind of health care they're going to have for the coming year. I mean, it's that time of year where decisions have to be made. The folks at Grace Point Healthcare want you to think about their smart care plans. For just $69 a month, you get unlimited office visits and free basic labs for the entire year. And because they treat the entire family, even newborns, they can offer family plans as well. You get all that for $69 a month. Then, in conjunction with a high deductible insurance plan, you could save your family hundreds of dollars, the so-called catastrophic account. That's the kind of policy that you might want to get. It might work for you. You need to run the numbers, but think about this as a viable option. At Grace Point, they take their time with each patient. They will see you the same or next day. There are no long wait times or crowded wait rooms. They treat naturally whenever possible. It is a military vet-owned practice. Just some of the reasons why it's been voted the best primary care provider by Toast of Music City year after year after year. Grace Point wants you to know they believe strongly in freedom of choice when it comes to vaccines for you and your children. Grace Point Healthcare is on Main Street in Franklin. Here's the number, 599-6868 to schedule a visit.
I wanted to touch on the history of Tethered and kind of how it came about.
There's a handful of us that were already using similar equipment. At the time, however, you couldn't just go to the store and buy saddle equipment. It just didn't exist. Selfishly, we just were making gear that nobody else would make for us and that we wanted ourselves. And our goal was just to make enough to break even. Fortunately for everybody involved, it took off. It's got an appeal. People really liked it.
When you think of a saddle, that's what I think of. That's the first name that I think of when I hear about a saddle.
For me, I mean, the reason I got into it was I'm hunting public land, and most of the time I'm going pretty deep. Being lightweight and mobile was huge. I walk in with a pack and my bow. That's it. The more I did it, I was like, man, there's so many features here that are helping me improve as a hunter, where I can take different shot angles and stuff. And I'm going to tell you, I feel safe with this rope all the time.
Yeah.
From the ground up, I'm hooked in. If I fall off this thing, I'm just going to swing a little bit. And I think the learning curve is small. It's just about getting comfortable with your equipment. It's the biggest thing. And for me, it's repetition and then fine-tuning that to meet my needs. And that's the cool thing. What I like and what might meet my needs might be a little different from you. And even though we're doing the same thing, you can tweak it to meet your needs. And I really like that aspect about it.
But we've done a really good job of just innovating and creating products that don't exist. You're seeing the growth of the sport, you're seeing the innovation, and you're seeing all of these cool things that we make, and it's because we actually use it.
It's 38 minutes past the hour of 6 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. Of course, the other big story that's happening here is a local story where 3 pages out of the Covenant Shooters Manifesto apparently posted online. And, it's this little dance that goes on in times like this. The documents, okay, are they authentic? Well, if you call the police department, they say, well, we can either confirm, deny the authenticity of these documents. But in practical terms, the way this works with reporters, it goes a little something like this. Well, hey, can you confirm that this is real? No, we can't do that. Well, what about, will you deny that no, we're not going to confirm or deny? And then you say, okay. But generally, if it is something that is not authentic, you will get a wave off. The source will say, well, can we go off the record? They say, yeah, go off the record for a moment. Okay. Give me some guidance here. If I were you, I wouldn't run that story because I think you'll be very embarrassed down the line. That's the kind of thing you get told. And I've been covering cop shops for years. That's just the way the game is played. There are a lot of times they won't give you a comment on the record, but off the record, they will wave you away from it. And you know to be very cautious if you have the good relationship with that particular source. In this particular case, nobody is effectively saying that these documents are not real. And in fact, when the mayor comes out and says, we're conducting an investigation, well, you don't conduct an investigation to find out how documents were leaked if the documents aren't real, right? Because nothing would have been leaked. So, it's just a little game, and finally, I guess by the end of the day, the general sense of it was these documents were absolutely authentic. I mean, our Matt Murphy had a source. He said he 100% trusts. It says that they're real. Patrick Leahy over at the Tennessee Star has a source, says they're real. Channel 4 has a source, says they're real. Channel 17 has a source, says they're real. So I'm not too worried about it. I mean, they are real. Now we can have a big debate about whether or not this is a good thing or a bad thing. I hear the pain of the families. And that's very much on my mind, because they're now going through a great deal of pain. As the wounds were starting to heal, they are now having them ripped open again. But if this were a normal case, and if the families had not intervened in this particular case, these would have come out in short order shortly after the investigation, if normal procedures were followed. There was no person that was going to be tried here because the shooter was killed by police. So there's never going to be a trial, so there was no need to withhold the documents from the public. But, it became a thing, and there are probably about 10, 15, 20 lawyers that are now involved in this case. There is an actual case now trying to decide whether or not the parents have the authority or have the ability to intervene in the case. In other words, do they have standing? And no ruling has come down on that as yet. But if this thing had followed regular procedures, the way the Freedom of Information Act imagined that it would unfold, this would have come out days after the shooting. The reason why they're going through a painful period of time now is because and by the way, if the judges who are handling this case rule that they don't have standing, it was going to come out anyway. So the documents have come out, and it's painful now. If they'd done regular things, they wouldn't have had to deal with this now, because the pain of this whole thing would have been right there alongside of the pain of their tremendous losses as they start to try to rebuild their lives. And again, I understand, maybe I know I can't understand. You and I, we probably can't understand what they've gone through. But the law doesn't allow them to intervene in my reading of the law. And this was always going to be something that was probably going to come out later anyway. And better, I think, to have it all at one time at the beginning than have it dragged out over a year is the way it feels like to me. One way or the other, that is, of course, our big story of the day. There's some other things going on I need to try to push into the show before we part ways and hand it over to Mark Levin. Former President Trump testified today in this trial, this civil fraud case. And here's the story from the Washington Examiner. A judge berated Donald Trump on Monday in Manhattan for giving extended answers while the former president was testifying on the witness stand in a civil fraud case, threatening that he would draw a negative inference from Trump's responses. Judge Arthur Engoron became testy to the point of shouting at Trump's defense attorneys to sit down after they began responding to Engoron's complaints that Trump was giving speeches instead of answering questions appropriately. The scolding from Engoron began when Trump was responding to questions about his financial statements. The former president said he often did not factor in his brand value and instead undervalued his assets, countering claims New York Attorney General Letitia James made that he grossly exaggerated his wealth over several years. Did you ask for an essay on brand value? Engoron asked James's attorneys. Engoron lectured Trump and his attorney for editorializing after Trump claimed he was too busy during a period in 2021 to pay close attention to financial documents because Democrats, all Trump haters, were targeting him then. Trump also drew the judge's ire when he referred to the trial as crazy. Engoron asked Trump's attorneys to tell their client to answer questions with a yes or no. See, this judge has got it in for Trump. There's no doubt about it. This judge is irritated by Trump, and Trump has the right to say what he needs to say to defend himself in this court of law. Mr. Keiss, can you control your client? This is not a political rally, Engoron said at one point. I'm not here to they also said the questions warranted narratives of responses that Engoron would want to hear what Trump, all of his witnesses had to say. I'm not here to hear what he has to say, Engoron yelled. Sit down, Mr. Keiss. Sit down, Ms. Haba. These are the attorneys for Trump. Trump then said, unprompted and into his microphone, this is a very unfair trial. Very, very, and I hope the public is watching. It was a pretty interesting day in the courtroom. But I don't like this judge, and I don't think he's being fair. And there's no jury, by the way. The judge will make the decision here. What decision do you think this judge is going to? Do you think the fix is in on this one or not? Pretty clear that it is. Pretty clear that it is. In Israel, very quickly, Israel Defense Force Staff Sergeant Sheher Cohen. Oh, I'm sorry. Excuse me. I picked this up a little later here. Apparently, Hamas security chief was killed, and a 34th IDF soldier has fallen in Gaza. I think that brings the total to 19, I think, of soldiers who have died in this conflict thus far for the Israeli side. Also, the IDF announced that Jamal Musa, the head of Hamas's special security operations in the Gaza Strip, has been killed in an Israeli airstrike. In 1993, Musa carried out an attack on Israeli forces patrolling the Strip. Israel has carried out more than 450 airstrikes in the past 24 hours, targeting tunnels, terrorist cells, military compounds, observation posts, and anti-tank missile launch sites. Israeli forces on the Navy side also struck Hamas command centers, missile launch sites, and observation posts. Ground forces took over a Hamas compound containing observation posts, training areas, and tunnel networks. So, I mean, they're really moving in on Gaza. It's the 31st day of Operation Sword of Iron, launched in Israel in response to the October 7th attacks. So they are making progress, but there are some losses. The losses have not been as big as they might have otherwise been. The battlefield was softened by the constant air bombardment, and it keeps Hamas at bay when the troops move in. They've got all kinds of softened battlefield to deal with. Although when you're talking about urban fighting, the enemy can always have the high ground in an urban environment, and that's not good. Meanwhile, Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, has met with the leader of the Tehran-backed Palestinian group Hamas, Ismail Haniyeh, in Tehran, reported on Sunday that a day after Hamas officials said they held a meeting in recent days. There are pictures. It apparently happened. Who says the Iranians are not involved in this? Of course they're involved in this. And then closer to home, as we wrap things up, two stories I think you need to know about. Two Middle Tennessee cities among the 25 fastest growing cities in the United States. Have to make a guess, Chris? What would you say the one that is fastest growing in the state of Tennessee right now?
I would guess Murfreesboro.
That's it. You got it. Mm-hmm. It was Murfreesboro. But the other one was Clarksville, growing very quickly. It was 22nd. Murfreesboro on the national poll was 16th, and Clarksville was rated 22nd, with their populations growing 19.1% for Murfreesboro. Wow. And 15% for Clarksville. Whew, man, that's a lot of growth. That's happening quick. That's happening real quick. And then we talked about this during Mac Maury's Wide World of Sports. Robert Kraft, according to some reporters in the Boston area, looks to be making a change at the end of the season. He wants to get rid of Belichick. They're not having a great season up there with the Patriots. And his number one choice, his home run choice is the terminology that's been used, would be Mike Vrabel.
Could get interesting this offseason.
Yeah. By the way, it's also been rumored around here in Nashville that maybe Belichick might be considered for a job for the Titans.
Wouldn't that be something?
Yeah, just a swap. That'd be something. 50 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock. When it comes to large home repairs, things like waterproofing or foundation repair, if you've got problems, you know it when you got them, you need to call somebody who really knows their stuff, somebody that will give you peace of mind, not try to upsell you with stuff you don't need. Well, that would be United Structural Systems. 25,000 satisfied residential customers. Don't take my word for it. Just listen to some of the customers and what they had to say. Jeffrey says the service was A+++. Constance says it was an excellent experience. They put me at ease with the whole process. Gloria said, excellent customer service and work. Thank you for the respect that your guys showed me. They were truly like a breath of fresh air. Listen, here's the thing. They'll come out, they'll assess your situation, they'll tell you how to fix it and give you their best professional advice. And if you decide to go forward, you won't pay a penny until the job is done and you're completely satisfied. That's right. They guarantee their best. Just call USS, serving Middle Tennessee, Southern Kentucky, Western Kentucky, Northern Alabama, online at USSTN.com, or call this number, 615-488-7855.
Hi, I'm Paul Winkler. One of the things you hear me talk about frequently on my radio show that has been going for over 20 years in the Nashville market is that annuity sales are not necessarily a great thing for the end investor. Now, if you go to an investment firm, a lot of times you'll get that. The first thing that they recommend, an annuity. Banks and investment firms recommend these for one really good reason. And many times that reason isn't the best thing for you. It's commissions. It's a huge moneymaker for the investing industry. This is why I think it's so important that when you work with an investment advisor, that they not be paid on commission. It creates a huge conflict because it creates an incentive to sell you things that may not be in your best interest. If you want to learn more about our approach to investing and financial planning, go to paulwinkler.com and set up a free 15-minute phone call. We don't do anything on commissions. Or you can call 615-851-1950.